Hello guys, welcome to BLT Recap and Analysis. This is Eternal Snowman, and this is going to be covering BLT IV and my experience and battles through it. So we're going to be using the same format that we did last year. First, I'm going to go over my team, my thought process on the team, how my team works, and then go through the match that I played. And I'll be posting all these teams in the description below if you're interested in having them. So we'll start with this team, which was built under the essentially because Mega Tyranitar came out relatively recently, and I had a lot of success with it in ORAS. I think it was appropriate to use it as one of my Pokemon and use the core that I used in ORAS, which was Mega Tyranitar, Primal Kyogre, and Specs Xerneas, with these like exact EV spreads and whatnot. As for movesets, the reason I chose this specific move spread on Tyranitar is Stone Edge provides pressure. You can also use Rock Tomb in this slot, which I was experimenting with, but sometimes it didn't actually, like, it requires you to win a couple 50-50s in terms of whether to Rock Tomb again or to pursue. Like, for example, if you get in on Ho-Oh, you Rock Tomb, and then you have to guess whether they're going to switch or not, and then you pursue. And if you pursued, then you can get the kill, but then Rock Tomb again would also get the kill if they don't switch. And Crunch is like, I've been using a lot of Crunch on Tyranitar just because you want Crunch to be able to hit Lunala and Gengar if they don't switch, because it's not guaranteed they OHKO, which is like something important that came up in my match. And Tyranitar is mainly here as a trapper, as well as it provides Stealth Rock support. The reason why it's used over normal Tyranitar is because it's a higher bulk, especially physically, and its higher attack stat makes it more threatening. And also, because of its higher base stats, it's able to set rocks more reliably compared to normal Tyranitar, because normal Tyranitar doesn't have the bulk to set up on the things that it's not needed to check that specific game. So, like, for example, if it needs to trap Gengar, it's very unlikely that you'll be able to kill the Gengar and set rocks in the same game. Kyogre is super standard. I'm choosing Toxic over Ice Beam because this is like normal, and I don't have any like big Toxic spreaders so that Kyogre doesn't have to use Toxic, like, other than Aegislash, but Aegislash isn't going to be used for like most of the game unless they have like a choice Zern. And that matchup is like kind of iffy anyway, and I don't want to be like matchup dependent. Say, like, so if it's non-Zern with Pidon, then a lot of my Pokemon are pressured by Pidon, so Pidon switches reliably into T-Tar and Kyogre and Aegislash. And since Tar isn't carrying Toxic, I'm going to give it to Ogre, so that if Pidon switches in, it can't switch in reliably into all three of these mons continuously because it gets worn down really easily. And same with Xerneas, but it's a soft switch into this Zern. And the reason I choose this specific move pool for Zern, Aroma is pretty much super helpful in this specific matchup, or like in any specific matchup, because choice Zern with Aroma allows you to reset matchups, especially against bulky offense and stall that require a significant amount of status to be able to be successful, like, for example, Zygarde complete and like a lot of Toxic spreaders on balance offense, like Alolan Muck, Aegislash, Tyranitar, Kyogre, even Groudon and those kind of Pokemon, and Gira-O, and same with Stall. They have like a lot of reliance on status, so Aroma can reset the matchup. And Moonblast, and also it helps because, for example, one of the ways that you can deal with Tyranitar trapping is if you run Wisp Gengar, and Gengar will still die, but it will essentially trade 1-for-1 with Tyranitar, because Tyranitar doesn't have, like, if it gets burned, it's very much useless. But Aromatherapy can solve this issue. The rest of it is pretty standard. I'm running Timid because plus speed Xern is pretty nice to have, just like to outspeed. It outspeeds Rayquaza, plus speed Rayquaza. It outspeeds a lot of speed creep. So, for example, they normally don't creep for Xern anymore. So it outspeeds like creeped Arceus, support Arceus, that creeps for, so outside of Darkseus and Roxeus, which creep for Yveltal, max speed Yveltal, the other ones don't. So like if Groundseus is creeping, like it's not running max speed, or like 192 for Lucario, a lot of times it'll run less to outspeed max speed Primal Groudon. I think it's 124 speed, and that's the same for Lugia and such. So they don't actually hit the 326 speed that Xern does. So Moonblast can hit them pretty hard, and Xern doesn't really need extra power for Modest, because the only thing that it really needs to like break through with its extra power would be Primal Groudon, but my team has already a lot of ways to pressure Groudon off. So offensive variants still get 2-hit KO'd after rocks, I'm pretty sure, while defensive variants get 3-hit KO'd, but there are other ways to pressure it, so it's generally still fine. And then the Arceus-Ground, I'm running 192 speed because this is to creep Lucario, because I wanted more physical bulk to be able to check Primal Groudon more reliably. Since I'm not scared of the special variant because I have Primal Kyogre, which pretty much completely hard walls it. The physical variant, especially SDs, are very scary, and so I wanted to put some more physical bulk to be able to deal with Primal Groudon better. Otherwise, it's generally standard. The reason why I wanted Arceus-Ground in this specific slot is while I was experimenting with, I believe, E-Killer or Arceus Fairy or something. I don't remember exactly, but I was experimenting with another one, but I switched to Arceus-Ground for consistency's sake, since I wanted a reliable defogger, as well as the fact that it deals with a lot of the Pokemon that these three Pokemon struggle with, namely like Magearna and like Magearna is like a big one because Magearna can kind of free switch on most of these except for Primal Kyogre. And in general, like other steel types like Aegislash and Arceus Steel are also kind of pressured off, as well as it being like a general blanket check, as well as checking Primal Groudon. It generally provides a lot of good coverage and reliability in most matchups, as well as being like a good defogger. So in general, it can be and also it provides like Mega Ments checks and whatnot, although it's not necessary. It's helpful things. Primal Groudon was chosen as the next slot because the previous ones are all extremely weak to offensive Primal Kyogre, which is like generally a theme that I had in my Oras teams, that offensive Primal Kyogre was a big threat, but it's not super good or common. So generally it's fine, but Groudon is chosen, and also because it provides a lot of pressure, since the Pokemon that Xern loses to are beaten by Groudon and T-Tar, which are mainly like Ho-Oh, Groudon. The reason why this Dawn is chosen because Jolly Dawn is good at pressuring other Primal Groudons, as well as like Ho-Oh, and due to its creep, it can creep a lot of like faster Pokemon. So it's very good, since some people don't even run creep for 306 Groudon, which is Jolly Groudon, anymore, but sometimes they do. The moveset is the moveset was chosen here because, well, P-Blades and Swords Dance is pretty standard for Jolly Primal Groudon, but I chose Fire Punch and Dragon Claw to pressure Zygarde C and Gyara-O a little bit harder, specifically, and also because Ho-Oh is covered by Tyranitar, so it's not like a huge deal, and Fire Punch generally provides a lot of better neutral coverage than Stone Edge. And Aegislash is just chosen as the last slot to is chosen as the last slot to fill the Xern check, as well as just spreading more toxic to play against harder stall matchups, like provides a way to give toxic immunity to like Lugia and other Pokemon that require toxic to pressure. So in general, I'm not like hugely scared of Sub Lugia because I do have Kyogre, and but Aegislash helps the Lugia matchup, helps the Xerneas matchup, helps the even the Ho-Oh matchup loosely. Helps a lot of the support Arceus matchups, like Arceus Water mainly, since my team doesn't really have a good way to pressure outside of Xerneas, and it helps the Dialga matchup, it helps the Giratina matchup as well, loosely, depending on what status it decides to run. And it can just generally help pressure like bulky oriented teams more. And that's about it for my team. I think it was one of the best ones I've built. Oh my god. Let me just real quick. Sorry about that. Generally, it's one of the better teams I've built so far. I feel like it has a lot of... it's very well-rounded. It provides a lot of pressure in many different scenarios. And okay, we can just go into the game to see. Oh, and the TTR EV spread is just standard. You want this much Fizz Def just to be able to pressure a lot of the Pokemon like Mega Man's and Mega Man's Ho-Oh and these kind of Pokemon. Okay, so just looking right off the bat on the matchup, Gengar is a big one because I have Tyranitar. I feel like my opponent didn't really prepare super well. Byron the well. I heard he's pretty good, but like the prep wise, it's already from Team Select seems very bad because bringing Gengar versus me is pretty bad since I've been bringing I bring T-Tar in most of my games actually, so it's generally not super good versus me. And then he has Ho-Oh, Zygarde C, which is something that kind of annoys my team if it's the sub-coil variant. Which I think does end up being Celesteela, which is also annoying to my team. However, I have Primal Groudon, and Primal Groudon sets up on Celesteela. And so, just off the team select, you can tell that Primal Groudon is going to be a huge asset because nothing on his team really deals with Groudon well, unless this support Arceus is Water or Ground, and even Water doesn't even deal with it well. And so Primal Groudon is going to be huge, as well as Xerneas, as long as Ho-Oh is weakened or rocks get up. And that's very likely because I do have T-Tar. So T-Tar already wins the first two Pokemon here. And it doesn't look like he has like a super safe switch in it, except for maybe Celesteela. So right off the bat, I should be looking to pressure really hard with Xern and Primal Groudon in this matchup. And also Primal Kyogre seems very good. Just in general, my team has a really good matchup in this scenario. Since he doesn't have a good Primal Kyogre switch in, unless this one is, I don't even know, like Arceus Grass or something, but like that just seems very unlikely because Gengar loses to it unless I get really bad sleep talk rolls, and attacks. Ho-Oh loses to it. Arceus generally loses to it. Pretty much almost all support Arceus variants that are good in this magic lose to it. Primal Groudon is like a semi-safe switch in, but it gets toxic and easily worn down. So unless it's Rest, which from Team Select doesn't look like it, Zygarde loses to it generally unless it's like DD with Ground DMZ. And once again, this doesn't look like a team that would run it. And Celesteela is like pretty much loses to it as well, unless it's like heavily invested in Spadef. So we can just get into the replay. So I lead Primal Kyogre here, and he leads Arceus Dark, which I actually feel like is kind of a bad move because that means that it reveals what I can do next, the information, because of his support Arceus form had a huge impact on how much Primal Groudon, how much Xerneas affected this matchup. And it ends up being that they both affected super hard, meaning they're both like gonna smash this matchup. Arceus Dark is probably one of the worst one of the best things for me personally, because it doesn't actually beat any of my mons except for Aegislash, and even Aegislash, it gets toxic on the switch, so it's not super good, except maybe Groundseus doesn't really pressure it very hard. But Arceus can't do anything to Kyogre, and same with T-Tar, and it gets pressured out by Xern as well as Primal Groudon, so even though outspeeds Primal Groudon, it probably will get pressured out. So he goes for Toxic, and he misses, which is unlucky for him, but it's not like a huge deal, because, to be honest, like that was kind of a risky play because of what happened is it takes a ton of damage from any Water Stab, and I'm 0 special attack Kyogre. If I went for like Origin Pulse there, and I was like offensive, which is like unlikely, but like if that was the scenario, he could just auto lose because his team doesn't have a good answer to Kyogre. And also I'm Rest, so trading Toxics with an Arceus form for a Kyogre is always a bad idea because Kyogre has Rest. So Kyogre can always like reset status and stuff, but Arceus doesn't really have that option. So I pretty much try to go for the predicted P-Don, but it doesn't end up working. So I just click Rest here. And I'm kind of scared of Gengar being Hex, and I'm getting like a bad Sleep Talk roll. So I just go hard T-Tar, which is pretty much generally the play. He gets Hex, which is like, this is like extremely risky because in the scenario that he is, like in any scenario here, he gets set up into a place where he can pretty much potentially lose the game on turn 5, pretty much. Since his Gengar is extremely necessary to pressure my Spec Xern, that's like the only way he really has to deal with Xern. And he could potentially lose it on turn 5 by just going for this Hex. Even if he's Focus Blast here, if I'm either Choppletar or Mega Tyranitar, I just take it and kill him back. So he's now set up into a 50-50 situation where it's Tyranitar versus Gengar, and he can if he clicks either Focus Blast or Wisp and I Pursuit, then he'll win the 50-50. But if he doesn't, then he pretty much just loses here. So I'm predicting him to go for Focus Blast or Wisp here, and I go for Crunch, and it ends up that he is Wisp because he has revealed Hex. I was like pretty certain that he was gonna be Wispgar at this point, just looking for him at his team, and then I predict him to go Switch, and I just go for the Pursuit because I'm not scared of Focus Blast at that point. He then goes to Zygarde, and I have Xerneas for that, so he just clicks Substitute, and this is kind of what I was talking about with the Subcoil Zygarde. Because my team doesn't super like Paralysis, I don't really have anything that can safe switch into the Paralysis, so he then goes to Ho-Oh on my Moonblast, and I go to Arceus-Ground because I wanted to pressure Zygarde further, because I was afraid of essentially the Paralysis kicking in, but ended up not happening, so he goes to Ho-Oh. And looking at my team, it was pretty unlikely that I was going to be SD Groudon, so, I mean, it could have been SD Arceus-Ground, but I don't think he thought that I was, so he went for the Toxic, which seemed kind of weird as a play, because I would have switched out if I was scared of the SD Ground CS, and then like went for like a Brave Bird or like went to like P-Don if I was like thought it was special. Because there's no reason why I would stay in versus Ho-Oh as special ground CS. So I go T-Tar, and I get up the rocks because I thought that he wasn't going to have a Defogger, honestly. It ends up being that his Arceus-Ground Dark is a Defogger, but I just go Xern on Zygarde because there's no reason not to, since I'm already paralyzed. And I go for Aroma because I want to get rid of... so essentially, Aroma cures three different status. So Xern's Paralysis, which is probably the least important. Kyogre's Rest, which is like pretty good as well. And then Tyranitar's Burn, which is huge because it means that Tyranitar can then once again take on Ho-Oh very reliably. And which I was kind of talking about before with the Aroma resetting this bulky offense matchup. So Zygarde goes for Glare, and there's nothing Zygarde can really do to Kyogre, as you can see. If it's not a boosting move, then there's literally nothing that it does back. So I just go for Rest, because I have no fear. He goes for Coil, but like at +1, it still only does 30 damage. So what my point is that like the reason why I'm playing this way is because I wanted to sack Kyogre in this matchup because what I wanted to do is get Xern in to get a pressure scenario, because the only safe switch in would be Spadef Celesteela when rocks are up, but I'm pretty sure he's not Spadef, since Spadef is like pretty rare nowadays. So I was sacking Kyogre, especially since I didn't want to throw the game. So like ideally what I would have wanted to do is try to sack Aegislash, since Aegislash is completely useless in this specific matchup, since it like soft checks, or like it can toxic Arceus Dark, but it's already toxic. It can toxic Groudon, but then it also risks letting it set up. So the matchup is really bad for Aegislash. But I didn't want it to like essentially set up a lot of coils, get a glare down, and get a sub up against Aegislash, so I just wanted to sack Kyogre and be done with it. Just to play safe, and so, because I know that Xern is going to be faster than it, because I'm running max speed Xern, there's no way Zygarde can outspeed. So he goes into his Primal Groudon, and I just go for the Moonblast, because there's no reason not to. And if he reveals Spadef Groudon, and I just go Arceus, I probably could have went straight for another Moonblast, since he was lowered special attack. But I ended up not risking it because I know Xern is going to be important to pressuring his team. So I just ended up going to Arceus-Ground, which is a safe play. And then I predict him to go into Ho-Oh or Celesteela here. And I go Groudon, which pretty much sets me up into a perfect position, because this Groudon is pretty much in a position where it just wins if it gets up SD, because it's Jolly-Don and outspeeds. Zygarde kills it, kills this. And Arceus Dark can't really touch it outside of just hitting one Judgment. So he goes for the Toxic, so it puts Groudon on a timer, and then switches out Ho because he thinks it's going to be useful, which it will be in this matchup, for Xern especially. But then I just go ahead and kill Arceus with Fire Punch. He actually reads my bluff that I'm not Rock Move Groudon, which is like kind of surprising. So he goes Ho-Oh, and then I'm pretty much expecting him to go Zygarde here, because I reveal Fire Punch, and I'm thinking that he thinks I'm going to click Fire Punch. I'm Fire Punch Rock Move, but I'm not, so I click Dragon Claw on the predicted Zygarde. So I do hit Zygarde. And this was a potentially game-throwing play. I should have known that he was going to go Celesteela here and try to go for the double protect. So what I should have done here, and this turn was a 50-50. So if he went for the protect, I should have gone for the Xern play and then reset with a Aromatherapy, and then have Groudon come in again and get another kill. But I went for like the more risky play by going for just like not just essentially just keep attacking, because I had thought that Xern pretty much had it with the Specs Thunder, which ended up being a little bit more risky, but he gets a double protect and then sacks Groudon, and I just go Xern. So these next few turns don't matter that much. It's essentially me sacking Tyranitar into getting some damage onto Celesteela, and then I can get Specs Thunder, which kills, and then I just kill the last two with Specs Thunder. He says it mattered, but he got the double protect, so not like it's not a huge deal. So alright, so this was the first match as well overall, so I got first blood. So my overall thoughts on the matchup, I didn't even use Aegislash because he didn't have Xerneas. Aegislash is kind of that Pokemon that's extremely matchup dependent. If he doesn't have the specific Pokemon that like it's good against, it's like it does okay versus Gengar, but it's mainly for Zern, Lugia, Deoxys attack, like these Pokemon. If they don't have it, then it's pretty much just a free sack into something. I thought I played the match extremely well. I thought my opponent had really bad prep, and I won a couple 50-50s, which ended up winning me the game. I thought my opponent played it like okay. There's a couple plays that I feel like he made that weren't extremely good, but overall looking at it, I thought I played it well. I thought I brought a really strong team that had very few flaws that could be easily exploited. So pretty happy with this match overall. And I really feel like this team has a really strong, bulky offense core that has, it's not easy to exploit, especially with Mega Tyranitar, Primal Kyogre, and Zern providing a lot of individual pressure, as well as a lot of pressure when they come together, because a lot of Zern's checks and counters are beaten by the other two. Namely, like Pharaoh Thorn is the one that really makes this team like seem a little bit weaker, but I have Primal Groudon for that. But like Mega Tyranitar really pressures a lot of the normal spec Zern answers, like Mega Gengar, like Ho-Oh. And then Primal Kyogre can answer Pokemon like Celesteela, like Ho-Oh, like Primal Groudon a little bit better. Like Arceus-Ground for Mega Tyranitar, and so on and so forth. So the team seems very solid, and I'm looking forward to next week and hopefully getting another win as we start off 1-0. And thank you guys for watching. The team will be in the description below, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.